Through these programs, we bring you, our audience, into conversation with artists and delve deep into the stories behind their creative process and the work that they create. Today, our topic stems from the work of Walt Whitman, takes a circuitous route through Alabama, and brings us back here to Philadelphia. So one of our questions today is, who is America? This question will always be a difficult one. Today we're going to listen to some of Alabama's many voices, as well as that of our guests, artist Jennifer Crandall and Elisabeth Perez-Luna, and yours, and perhaps together we'll piece together some semblance of an answer. Why Walt Whitman? Spring 2019 marks the 200th anniversary of Walt Whitman's birth, and spearheaded by the University of Pennsylvania Libraries with funding support from Pew Center for Arts and Humanities. Whitman at 200, Art and Democracy, is in full tilt this spring and is offering Philadelphians myriad ways to consider Whitman's legacy. So contributing to this bicentennial, the museum is presenting a video installation titled Whitman, Alabama, by artist Jennifer Crandall, curated by Amanda Bach, that's over in the main building in Gallery 119. I hope you get a chance to see it if you haven't already. As Jennifer describes on the Whitman, Alabama website, this is an experiment in using documentary and poetry to reveal the threads that tie us together as people, as states, as a nation. Jennifer Crandall is a filmmaker and journalist whose work explores themes of identity and connection. She worked at the Washington Post, where she created the Emmy-nominated series On Being. She has received numerous awards for her work, including the Knight Batten Special Distinction Award for Innovation, an Online News Association Award for Innovation, awards from the White House Photographers Association, and recognition from the American Film Institute. And Jennifer is joined in conversation today by another really distinguished and wonderful guest, Elisabeth Perez-Luna. Elisabeth has worked as a journalist and independent radio producer for NPR and other networks for years and has been at WHYY since 1999, where she is now the executive producer of audio content. She produces special series, programs, and features for radio and web. Elisabeth has also received numerous awards for her national and regional radio documentaries, news features, sound portraits, and environments. I'm sure many of you will recognize her voice as soon as she takes the stage. We're going to start our program today with a portion of the video project. This is going to be verse 43. It's a short film from Whitman, Alabama that gives particular insight into the working process of the project and some of the people that Jennifer met in her travels. So please enjoy, and then we'll welcome our guests to the stage. Thank you.
Can I tell you a little bit more about our project?
Yeah, I don't care.
So, I'm going all around the state with Pierre and some other folks, and we're doing a documentary on Alabamians, where I just want to highlight the lives of different people we meet, because I think Alabama's a pretty fascinating, interesting state. Instead of interviewing people, I'm asking them to read parts of the poem on camera. Would you guys be interested in being on camera at all?
Not really.
Not really?
Not really.
Not your thing?
No. Not really.
I sit back in the back. I let everybody be up front. I just sit back and listen.
Yeah, that's what I do too, actually.
That's all I do. I don't like to be up front and nobody notices me.
No.
Me either.
Yeah. Well, you're on it a little bit, but you don't want to be on it anymore reading some poetry?
Oh.
No? But this is okay right now?
Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
It's just the poetry that's a bit too much.
Well, let me look at it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Very good.
Why don't you do all this? I'm going in the house.
I do not despise you priests all time, the world over. My faith is the greatest of faith and the least of faith. And closing worship, ancient and modern, and all between ancient and modern. Believing I shall come again upon the earth after 5,000 years. Waiting response from oracle, honoring the gods, saluting the sun.
I stopped because I was hoping y'all were from the Audubon Society, who I haven't called, but somebody will, because there is a white hawk that lives in this 3-mile stretch. God didn't make any white hawks, except for this one.
Well, I'm sorry we're not from the Audubon Society.
Right, it's okay.
We were just
it's
having
all right.
lunch on the side of the road.
It's all right. You probably didn't scare him off. He's probably fine. Don't worry.
In lieu of that, you gonna read some poetry for us?
Sure.
Okay.
In closing worship, ancient and modern, and all between ancient and modern, believing I shall come again upon the earth after 5,000 years, waiting responses from oracles, honoring the gods, saluting the sun, making a fetish of the first rock or stump, powwowing with sticks in the circle of obus, helping the lama or Brahmin as he trims the lamps of the idols, dancing yet through the streets in a phallic procession, wrapped and austere in the woods of Gymnosophist, drinking mead from the skull cup to Shastas and Vedas admirant, minding the Quran. Kind of makes me want to read Walt Whitman. Thanks.
Well, you know, I'm just kind of used to it, and I'm just like, you know.
This is my boss. This is Chase Taylor.
Okay.
Yeah, he owns it.
Chase? Hey, this is Jennifer Crandall. Hey, sorry, you're wondering what we're doing here? Well,
We'll watch out.
my
Thanks.
partner and I we're working on a documentary here in Alabama, and we're going around to all different parts of Alabama, and we were like, oh, there's a drive-in theater. This is cool. So we were checking it out, and we're basically trying to highlight the lives of Alabamians all across the state and show how just rich and diverse the state is. Now we just have to convince these women to do it.
Drinking mead from the skull cup to Shastas and Vedas admirant, minding the Quran, walking the Teocallis, spotted with gore from the stone and knife, beating the serpent skin drum. Accepting the Gospels, accepting him that was crucified, knowing assuredly that he is divine. To the Mass kneeling, or the Puritan's prayer rising.
Or sitting patiently in a pew, ranting and frothing in my insane crisis, or waiting dead-like till my spirit arouses me. Looking forth on pavement and land, or outside of pavement and land. Belonging to the winders of the circuit of circuits.
Belonging to the winders of the circuit of circuits, one of that centrifugal and centrifuge game, I turn and talk like a man, leaving charges before a journey. Downhearted, doubters, dull and excluded, frivolous, sullen, moping, angry and affected. Distant-hearted, atheistical, I know every one of you. I know the sea of torment, doubt, despair, and unbelief. how the fruits splash,
How they contort rapid as lightning,
how they contort rapid as lightning,
with spasms and spouts of blood.
with spasms and spouts of blood,
Be at peace, bloody flutes.
be it pieces of blood of fruits.
And you said you have trouble reading. Why is that?
Been so long ago.
Yeah, were you not really taught very well how to read, or?
No.
Be at peace, bloody flutes.
With peace, bloody fruits,
Of doubters and sullen mopers.
how doubted and flooded opens.
I take my place among you,
I take my place among you
as much as among any,
as amongst and amongst any,
as much as among any.
as amongst and amongst any.
The past is the push of you.
The past is the push of you.
Me,
Me, all
precisely the same.
precisely the same.
And what is yet untried,
What is yet untried
and afterward,
and afterward
is for you,
is for you,
me,
me,
all precisely the same.
all precisely the same.
Yeah, I'm a good reader. I'm not a good reader, but I'm a good singer.
Prove it. Prove it.
Prove it. Okay. I'm late. Salvation free. I'm late. Salvation. And let your joy be known. John died for you and me. I'm glad salvation free.
Here's pink bubble gum. Here's some tiger's blood. Thank you. I do not know what is untried and afterward, but I know it will prove sufficient and cannot fail. Each who passes is considered, each who stops is considered. Not a single one can it fail. It cannot fail the young man who has died and buried, nor the young woman who has died and put by his side, nor the little child that peeked into the door.
Thank you, y'all have a good day.
And then drew back and was never seen again. Nor the old man who has lived without purpose and fills it with bitterness, worse than gold. Nor him in the poor house tubercled by rum and the bad disorder, nor the numberless slaughtered and wrecked, nor the brutish kabooed, called the order of humanity. Nor the sacks merely floating with open mouths for food to slip in, nor anything in the earth or down in the oldest graves of the earth, nor anything in the myriads of spears, nor the myriads of myriads that inhabit them, nor the present, nor the least wisp that is known. Uh,
Oh, are you okay? Oh, all right. We're done. So how do we, is this on?
Yeah, how did you select the poem to say this is the person for this poem?
So each verse with the
Yeah.
poem. Yeah, so I mean, I think that what I am trying to do is very much try to highlight as much as I can the individuality out of each of these people. And I don't know what that's going to be, because a lot of times I just meet these folks on the side of the road, as you can see. So it's a crapshoot to some extent. But some people we did meet beforehand, so we could do some planning. But I would say that first, we're always trying to layer as much as we can into each piece, because the more that you can layer into each piece, the more there's going to be a chance that someone might respond to what they're seeing. If you give them lots of different inroads to these portraits of these people, then there's more of a chance that they'll find a connection, whatever that might be. So we used 3 different methods of sort of choosing people. One might be more straightforward. There was a verse that we did, I think verse 32, where we had a farrier changing some horseshoes, and that was a lot of just about animals. There was a lot of animal imagery in that, and to me that was like, well, it'll really make the imagery pop, and it'll make what he's doing pop, and there'll be just a almost straightforward relationship, even if the words aren't exactly the same. But what I find more interesting are the 2 other methods that we use when we choose, and one of them, and we should actually just show that right after this. One of them is contrast. So the first verse that opens up, Whitman says in his words on the page, "I, now 37 years old, in perfect health, begin." Why would I choose a 37-year-old white man to read this and to celebrate diversity and identity and the richness? So what we did was we chose a 96-year-old woman to read the poem, and there's a couple levels of contrast there. And then my third way that I think is super fun is, it was hot Alabama summer day, and we were like, let's go out and shoot, and we did, and we were like, what verse should we choose? We'll just do one where we're on the road, which is the one that you guys saw here. And I think Pierre, my shooting partner that day, said, well, we're on Route 43, what's verse 43 like? And I said, okay, let me look it up. So I looked it up, and it was long enough where we could, make it a road trip sort of thing. And there's just a lot of serendipity involved. I don't like controlling too much. I would say that this project, we sort of plan 49% and leave 51% up to serendipity, because it leaves room for the people to take their space in the work, and you have to react, and you have to sort of like, just take a back seat to what's going on. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I think one of the things that you were talking to when we were, it's like what you wanted to do is create an avenue back and forth, an avenue in which we understand America, we understand the poetry, and we understand that we cannot allow ourselves to reduce a person to a stereotype or the definition. And I thought that was really powerful. So what is the avenue that you want to establish in a way?
I'm not sure. Let me make.
I mean, what is it that you want to do?
I want to leave people a little confused.
Yeah, even.
I want to give enough information about these people that you get a sense of who they are. There's richness. There's a lot of visual texture there. There's texture in their voice. There's texture in the way they're meeting this ask. I mean, part of what this is no one, probably maybe some of you in this room have been asked by a stranger to read some poetry on camera. I don't know, but I think it also works that we can't say we know too much about these people because no one's done that thing before, or rarely has it been done. So I think I want to give you lots of information. I'm not going to tell you Virginia May is 96 years old. You can probably discern that to some extent. But then, you know, you're going to see that she wears Doc Martens and she has, you know, pink nail polish on. But she's never been asked to read poetry on camera before, so you see her meeting that moment. But also, I don't want to be too prescriptive, and my background is in journalism, and we can be very prescriptive with the way that we tell our stories. And I think that is fine, and that's great, but it can be, if we just go down that road all the time, we always think we know this other person or the content or the subject that we're reading about. So I want to also leave you with ideas, but not necessarily the answers, or you might feel something.
Yeah, and also because the risk that we take as journalists of just, let's ask you a question, let's talk, let's find the people, that is also very much in the words of Whitman. I mean, let's take some risk, let's have a life undefined and unprescribed by anybody else. Let's talk about this risk-taking and the discovery of finding people who are not only touched by the poems, but touched to be asked. A lot of the people, I think, because are used to words and all that, because most of them, and again, it might be my stereotype, are tied to the Bible, are tied to words being told in different places, or to music. And then all of a sudden, it's another kind of wording. Is that how you feel? Sorry.
Yeah, I think that's sort of my escape route to this. It's sort of like you will bring something to it, and you'll, by your mere fact of voicing this, it makes it not just Whitman's words and my interpretation of it, but it's that person's interpretation of it. So it sort of unlocks a whole lot of. It just unlocks a lot, and we can't be. Yeah, it just creates more potential for who these people are.
I think everybody maybe wanted to know why Whitman.
So it's a little bit of it goes back to when I was 16. I grew up abroad. My mom is Chinese Vietnamese, and she married my father, who's a white guy from Denver. But I was born in Asmara, which at the time was Ethiopia, but now is Eritrea. So I get asked, like you, all the time, what are you? And it's an interesting question, and I used to get it daily. And so I came back to America when I was 16, but I'm only an American, but didn't relate to this country at all. And I think what do you do when you're 16 and emotional? You write poetry or whatever. And so I think I was at Crown Books in McLean, Virginia, and I pulled off an anthology of American poetry. And Whitman was in there, and here's someone in a book of a beautiful American poetry, speaking about multitudes and speaking about the multiple selves we have inside ourselves and within the country. And so here's, for lack of a better word right now, validation or something, or here's a roadmap, here's something that is helping me make sense of something. Someone's articulating this or trying to articulate this. Cut to, 30 some years later, and I went to Alabama for this project. And I felt like Alabama was a highly misunderstood part of this country by a majority of this country. When I lived in Pakistan, people would say, wow, you live there, isn't it scary, isn't it crazy, crazy Muslims are super violent, and it just didn't make any sense to me. And I felt a similar thing when I went to Alabama. It's, people within this country and outside of this country think of it very one-dimensionally. I don't know how you can take a region and make it one-dimensional in your brain. That doesn't make sense to me. So when I was offered the opportunity from Alabama Media Group in Alabama to do a project, a storytelling project, it just in an instant, it clicked from Whitman getting Alabamians to read it and taking the poetry off the page, bringing it through the lives of people in current day America, having poetry come through people and joining this dead white dude from the north and the southerners from the south, and not one, but many. So it just sort of clicked in an instant, but it took like 35 years or something like that.
So when you stop by the side of the road, and let's talk to that man and his wife there who might or might not welcome us, or might not want to have us in their property or The dog might be angry. What kind of, well, I'm sure you met a lot of dogs.
Yeah.
Approaching someone is part of journalism, but it's part of someone like you and I who move from country to country and has to understand very quickly the dynamics of that place. Or how people talk to each other, how they approach, how they look at each other, and not straight in the eye, or maybe, you start slowly starting to talk. How do you navigate that whole approach to people who, in a way, are giving you part of their time, their energy, their voice, but also are getting a lot? This is an experience that you would never forget.
First, technically, I would say we never approached as journalists first or as filmmakers first. We approached as people first. And I don't care if they say no. I just don't care. It's just not worth it to me. It's more about the interaction first. And then if they say yes, we'll say, can we take our camera out? Then I would say, probably after years like you of moving around a lot and just trying to make sense of the world, so I'm trying to talk, the world around me changed so much because I was moving, you try to make sense of it, so you're talking to lots of people from different cultures. It just comes down to one basic thing is, no matter where you come from or who you are, if the person senses a genuine interest, you can get past your discomfort in the moment of trying to figure out A, how to cross a language barrier, or B, how to get around the dog who happens to be a super nice dog, or it's just something you can feel. It's something that you can feel if there's a genuine, that the person's trying to have a genuine interaction with you. And I'm not saying that that necessarily drops all barriers and everything is fantastic right away and it's all lovey-dovey and people say yes all the time. But that's the thing that I found. It's just as simple as that. You can get over all the rest, and then also get your job done. If you're a journalist, if you sort of, that's what's first and foremost, I think. Yeah.
Did you learn a lot? Did you feel that this was as important to you as it is for us, the public, but also to the people who were touched by that? I don't know if a lot of them continue to read Whitman or spoke about this experience or understood. I mean, Whitman is not that easy to understand sometimes. But how did this experiment, this innovative approach in terms of doing documentary production, changed you?
I feel very connected to Alabama, first and foremost, at this point. It's hard not to. But I think I went into this, the thing that's smacking me in the head right now over and over and over is how much I thought I was pretty good at anticipating things, and then I realized what a jerk I was in many ways. For example, when I came across Anthony, who read and he ended up singing, or didn't read and he ended up singing, I just never prepared for that. I never prepared for the fact, well, just get people to read Whitman. I'll just get people to read Whitman, no problem, you know? And I just didn't prepare for that. And all of a sudden, it was like a real sucker punch to me in that moment to presume that I'm so open-minded enough that, you know, it was a real humbling moment to realize that I come from a certain, for as much as I moved around, I still come from a certain place. And I have a lot more work to do. And the same thing happened, and maybe we can show verse 16. Mm-hmm. The same thing happened with this family, and they did a wonderful job. This is a family that I met in Mobile, Alabama. Every time I go to any place, I have to find Vietnamese food. It's my comfort food. So I found them in a Vietnamese restaurant, and this is a mother, her daughter, and her nephew. And also, this was another instance, like Anthony, there was an education level I didn't consider. Again, people would just read Whitman. If they say yes, they say yes. If they know, they say no, but they'll read it or they won't. And in this one, they all read it, but you can see what I might have learned, I think, in this verse by watching it.
Okay.
In terms of just showing up and then throwing the words in front of them. It's not easy.
Brandon, get back this way, Brandon. You need to, Brandon. Brandon. You want to play on my phone, but don't make it make noise. Here, play a game.
I am of old and young, of the foolish as much as the wise, regardless of others, ever regardful of others,
maternal as well as paternal, a child as well as a man.
Stuffed with the stuff that is coarse and stuffed with the stuff that is fine. One of the nation of many nations, the smallest the same and the largest the same.
A southerner soon as a northerner, a planter, nonchalant, and hospitable down by the Okanee I live. A Yankee bound my own way ready for trade, my joints, the limberest joints on the earth, and the sternest joints on earth.
A Kentuckian walking the Vale of Elkhorn in my deerskin leggings.
Veil.
Veil.
You messed me up.
Dude, you messed me up. You're depressing. In Louisiana or Georgian, a boatsman over lakes or bays or along the coast of Hoosier or Badger or Buckeye. At home on Canadian snowshoes or up in a bush or with the fishermen off Newfoundland. At home in the fleet of ice, both sailing with the newest and tacking.
At home on the hills of Vermont or in that woods of Maine or the Texan ranch. Comrade of Californians, comrade of free Northwesterns, loving their big proportions. Comrade of raftsmen, coalmen, comrade of all who shake hands and welcome to drink and meet.
A learner with the simplest, a teacher of the thoughtfulest, a novice being yet at the event of myriads of seasons.
Of every hue and caste am I, of every rank and religion, a farmer, mechanic, artist, gentleman, sailor,
Quaker,
prisoner, fancyman, rowdy, lawyer, physician, priest. I resist anything better than my own diversity. Pretty there, but leave plenty after me. And I'm not stuck up, and in my place. The moth and the fish eggs are in their place. The bright suns I see and the dark suns I cannot see are in their place. The palpable is in its place, and the impalpable is in its place.
Person. I start again. You talk about this as a way of looking at democracy. And I wanted to understand a little better how does this work for you, both in the poem and in your very democratic approach to the poem and to going to other sorts of people. Because there's one film, if you can watch, they're all on video, right?
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit of how does that enhance or informs the very complicated issue of what democracy is?
Actually, this is a good example. This is a family, for me it's about not just looking at sort of representative of there's you, there's me, and we each get, I don't know, one vote or whatever, and there's who you are and who I am, but who are all the different aspects of ourselves. So, or within units, you look at this family and Kathy, who actually never saw this, she passed away. We didn't know she was sick when we filmed this, but she's a by all accounts, a white woman in Alabama. Her daughter is Sam, who was in this, was half Vietnamese. And her nephew, they don't actually know what his genetic makeup is, except his mom is Kathy's sister. But beyond that, that's kind of like, okay, that's who you are racially or ethnically. Brandon, again, my guess on him is Kathy doesn't seem to be a very well-educated person. This is the other thing I was speaking about earlier. Like, I learned, like, oh, I just gave them this poem to read 4 seconds ago, and of course she's going to struggle through it. I didn't realize that until we discovered it in the minute. And maybe I should have thought to send people these things ahead of time, so they could prepare. Was this not very nice of me to do to her? Yet, through her generosity, she went ahead and read it anyway, and gave that to us to see. She didn't sort of say, I'm going to look bad, I'm not going to do this. She struggled through it. So here's someone that you get a sense of her education level. She also, this isn't explicit, but she's raising these kids, and she's talking about, Whitman's words are, I'm a mother and I'm maternal as well as paternal. And then Brandon, he read that. Like, I have multiple takes of him doing that flawlessly, just flawlessly. This kid was 8 and he is super brilliant, maybe undiagnosed ADHD. This family is not wealthy at all. I'm not saying these things outright. I don't know all of these things, but you can see that they have these multiple sides of themselves that all make who they are. So it's about all these different things we can see within a person that make up that person, that I think is... Oftentimes, I think with democracy, we're looking at sort of base level, top line signifiers about what that means about a person, where they're from, what town they're from, how they vote or whatnot. And this is just about the more interesting stuff. Maybe, there was a verse that we did, verse 44. The first half of it is a snake hunter. He's a white guy who was hunting snakes in the middle of the night just for fun on a river. And the second half was done by an African-American reading on a barge. And I recently ran into Steve, the snake hunter, recently, and he said, what's really funny about that is I used to work on a coal barge too. And he related to him because of the work, not he didn't sort of distance himself because he grew up in a different town or background. So I think that a lot of what I'm trying to do with this, again, we spoke about it earlier, is just find those different representative parts of people, or what we think, offer what potential's there, so that people can, again, look at identity and democracy in a different way.
Right, it's work that's unite us, or other things.
Yeah.
Not and it's not democracy and politics in the lighter sense, but it's in the broader sense of a country that has all sorts of aspects of unity, of individuals creating their own, connecting through the reality of being in this country.
The most fun thing for me is when I'm going around showing this work, different people say, oh, I love the woman with the bird, or I love Donnie who was selling candy, or oh, I love the guy in the barge. And I'm always like surprised at which ones they choose, not because I don't love them all, I love them all, but because I'm making presumptions about what you might choose and who you might relate to. And I'm still have a fun time trying to tease out why that person is relating or enjoying that one in particular. And like for Steve, it's because the second half of the read in the poem, he was like, well, he reminds me of my coal barge days, and I couldn't have planned that. I couldn't have tried to find a way to introduce them together, but it happened.
Nowadays there's a lot of talk about empathy, and not so much compassion, but empathy in terms of understanding where the person is at. And I felt that in your language, in your visual language, that drove the way you approach people and you respected people. There was never a moment in which you felt, or I didn't feel, even at in one of the scenes, and I hope you go through it, which is kind of haunting to me. The first thing you see is a backhoe opening holes in an open ground. And you're wondering, are they building something there? And it's a place where they're going to put the coffins of people, like a pauper's table, cemetery. people who have just barely their names scribbled in a metal box. And it's done in a practical way. You know, every hole gets a body. It's in the middle of nowhere. You know, I think that it's like there's no signs, there's no crosses, there's nothing that indicates that their people are being buried there. Yet there's a sort of kind of a sacred moment there. And then one of the guys who does the holes and puts there says a poem that's really brings us there without corniness, without, oh, look at these poor people that didn't even have the money to bury their families, which is both Whitman and both you, to find the image that corresponds to this, to the words. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I think one thing we really tried not to do is condescend to anyone in any way. I don't know these people very well. I'm spending a very short amount of time with them, but I just have to sort of respect that I don't know much about them, and also that they're giving a lot in the moment. And that doesn't compute in my brain. I don't know how to think this poor person, you know. But back to your point of empathy, I probably did that verse because I thought I could end up in a grave like that one day. I mean, I have a fear of that. So it was sort of like, you know, you just sort of trying to find ways. I think empathy is a hard thing. I think it's a thing you strive for. I don't know if you ever achieve it. And so I think that that's what we're trying to do with this, is striving for empathy, reaching it, maybe, I don't know, but usually using that as a tool. Yeah.
Do you want to show the one of the courthouse?
Sure, yeah.
This is a very, for me, it went to the next level of what documentary you're experimenting with, which is fascinating to me. And I think to all of us, it's a different way of looking at documentary. We have all seen people going to the South and, you know, doing visual documentaries about the houses and the musicians. I'm not qualifying them, but what we haven't seen is taking the time to talk to people and to find out who they are, who the people are. And you did that. So this, the segment we're going to see next, if you're okay.
Yeah, it's 37, I believe.
Because it takes us away from the countryside and the houses. It puts us in another place. Yeah?
First day I was here, one of my friends who was a state legislator came to see me, and he said, "Now, John, I want to tell you something that an old politician in Montgomery told me the first day I was in office in the legislature, and don't you ever forget it. You have an important job, a very important job, but you are not an important person. Don't ever forget that."
All right.
Thank you. Please be seated. Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Jackson County Circuit Court. Welcome to Drug Court. I'm John Graham. It's my privilege to serve you as one of your circuit judges. Let's see who is here.
I'm Keisha Helton. I pled into drug court January the 17th, 2015. My clean date is 6/6/15.
Anything special going on? Anything out of the ordinary? Anything unusual? Anything I need to know about? Anything you don't want me to know about?
Same old stuff, just meetings, class, raising kids, now getting my kid ready for first grade. It's a handful.
Laggards there on guard, look to your arms. In at the conquered doors they crowd. I am possessed.
embody all presences, outlawed or suffering. See myself in prison, shaped like another man, and feel the dull, unintermitted pain. All right, well, thank you, Miss Helton.
Thank you, sir.
Good luck to you this week. Chris Freeman.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning, Mr. Freeman. What's going on?
Doing what I'm supposed to do, Your Honor. Staying clean and sober.
Good.
For me, the keepers of convicts shoulder their carbines and keep watch.
It is I let out in the morning and barred at night. Not a mutineer walks handcuffed to jail, but I am handcuffed to him and walk by his side.
I am less the jolly one there, and more the silent one, with sweat on my twitching lips.
You have a driver's license?
I do.
Is that important?
Yes.
You got reliable transportation?
Most days.
Good, clean place to live?
I do.
Drug-free, crime-free?
Yep.
Good. Let's keep it that way. All right, who's next back there? Are y'all being good? Helping mama? What are y'all doing for fun this summer?
Swimming, we go to church, meetings
Good. Call your sponsor.
daily. Talk to her for 3 hours some days.
My name is Charles Palmer. My plea-in date's February 23rd, 2015, and my clean date is January 27, 2015.
Doing everything I'm supposed to be doing. Going to meetings, working. Went to visit my sponsor yesterday.
Every now and then, me and my guys from my home group go to Bradford, the treatment center I went to, and it's like a little panel speak.
My name is Joshua Akins. My plea-in date is June the 20th. My clean date is March the 20th. Took me a little while to get my head back in it, but I'm back on the right track now.
Not a youngster is taken for larceny, but I go up too, and am tried and sentenced.
Not a cholera patient lies at the last gasp.
But I also lie at the last gasp.
My face is ash-colored. My sinews gnarl.
Away from me, people retreat. Okay, thank y'all. I'm glad to see all of you. We'll be adjourned until next time.
Askers embody themselves in me, and I am embodied in them.
I project my hat, sit shamefaced, and beg.
The makings of old Greek tragedy, in which you would have call and response. It was not on purpose, it's the way, well, maybe on your part it was a decision, a creative decision of talking back and forth and mixing the poem with the daily conversation of this very tough, compassionate judge. And so this is a little of a departure from the other, what I see as a departure from the other way you did the documentary sections. Can you talk to a little bit about it?
Yeah, it was something that I came up with in the moment. I just thought, was looking at the words and thought it would make more sense if they were in dialogue, because they're going to be in, this was a court session and they were going to be in dialogue anyway, and they both agreed to read, and putting it together would just make sense if it just was, we could flow from their normal dialogue to them dialoguing through the poem and then back out again. So that was basically it. In that moment, it just sort of presented itself, and we just decided to go for it. And, you know, something we were talking about earlier, I think with this, we were talking about journalism and prescription. I think a lot of, I'm interested in the opioid epidemic, but I need, I feel like the type of stuff I want to do is to bring you in a world so that I'm not going to tell you all about drugs and opioids, but you might see the people who they are, and you might open your mind to who those people are, or maybe you close your mind, but you have a better sense so that maybe when you, as a journalist, when you, or you're reading the newspaper, when you read these stories, it might have a stronger effect on you or a different effect. So I'm not the one, doing the deep dive into what's going on in West Virginia or North Alabama, but if I can show you a sense of who these people are, maybe you'll attach to those stories a little bit more. Yeah.
And you do the same thing with issues of poverty, with issues of hard work or looking for work. So I don't know how we're doing for time. We can, because we obviously, this is very nice and we can talk forever, but I'm sure that you have questions too. I hope you do. And so how do you want us to do this?
We're just going to pass microphones.
Okay, all right. Yes, okay. So anybody would like to ask a question? It doesn't have to be about this particular verse or about anything that we've either spoken or not spoken about.
Thanks. Hi, that was very enlightening. There are so many small towns, excuse me, in America. How did you hear about Whitman, Alabama?
It's a fictional place in a way.
Oh,
because we just take Whitman from Whitman.
Thank you.
The poem, yeah.
Because I thought, well, maybe all the people you talked to, that was the entire town, because some little towns are like that.
Actually, I shouldn't say it's fictional. I guess it's a real place at this point, but it's not an actual physical, geographical place. Yeah.
Okay. So the other thing too was that you were driving through like the countryside. You seem to be in a more rural area. I don't recall seeing any, like more developed homes.
We filmed in Birmingham a lot, but these parts weren't necessarily, yeah.
Okay. So it's really, this is a lovely poem. It's a long poem. And so when you were talking to the people, like you said, did you say earlier that you just kind of went as you felt and kind of went to each part, different parts of the poem, depending on what was going on at that moment?
Yeah, and really just, like I said, I winged it, I don't know, sometimes. For the judge, I will say I put some thought into that one.
Okay.
I never wanted to also prescribe a poem to someone or a verse, so I would give options.
Okay.
And he actually wrote back and said, that one, it's so judgy. And I was like, well, here's why, much like the horse one, it's kind of like, oh, it might actually really pop in an interesting way, but you don't have to do it if you don't want to. He was like, all right, So, but I gave him probably 2 to choose from, hoping he'd choose that one, so I wouldn't have to convince him, or 2 that I suggested, 2 or 3 that I suggested, but then I explained, and again, if he had said no, that would have been fine. He could have said no to the whole thing, but he got it. He came around. I think he's okay with it now.
And also, that was nice that he wrote that to you. I could see people that I know in all of those vignettes. We do take for granted a lot about people. And the gentleman who said he wasn't taught to read very well was, I think he was being a little overstated. I don't think he was taught to read at all. And this is something that we kind of forget right now. This is real. There are people who are illiterate, adults, right here in this very city. And we say, oh, can you read this for me? Or, and people ask you stuff like, where's the bus? And you're like, it's right there. But then sometimes I have to say to myself, maybe they don't.
Right.
Maybe they can't read that.
Yeah.
So that, there were parts of every vignette that was so real. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, there's another person there. Thank you.
I'm wondering if the subjects have seen, the participants have seen the video?
Most of them
and their
have.
reactions?
Most of them have. I would say back to Anthony, who was singing. He's an example of, I have to go hunt him down. I have to go to Alabama. He can't read. He can't afford a phone. So there's going to be a point where I need to go to Alabama, get in a car, and go back to the last known address I have of him and hope that he's there, or find someone that can, because he's not someone I can tweet to. Not that I tweet, I don't do it very often, or whatever, social media, or even just in email. So those are the things that you take for granted. And the judge, on the other hand, has put it on Instagram 700 different times. So he's a well-educated white man in Alabama, and Anthony isn't. So I hope that can happen sometime.
Just a note, I think Jennifer and her team have been working on, it took them 2 years to get this material, because when you arrive at somebody's house, you talk, you discuss, sometimes it leads to a recording, sometimes it doesn't. And you've spent a great half a day or a whole day, and maybe it didn't pan out. So 2 years, and she's not done yet. So that is, you don't arrive and parachute as a journalist and tell me about and read this. There's part of the discussion and of the bringing people into that world that is very demanding, astute, time-consuming, and emotional. It's an emotional, when you see, I'm sure that for you and your team were feeling pretty, when you had to go on at night and have a good dinner or something. Anyway, any other questions? I'm sorry. Let's go on this side. This gentleman here.
Yeah, that was really fascinating.
Oh, and then the one next to you. No, it's okay, it's okay.
Oh,
Go
okay.
ahead, yes.
I was wondering, that couple that I think it was the first one, the couple that was sitting on the porch, and
Right.
you were also sitting on the porch.
Right.
And I'm wondering how in the world, with that initial hostility, did you ever get to the point where you're sitting on that porch with them?
I would say that there wasn't initial hostility outright.
Well, the wife, I thought.
Yeah, I guess sometimes it's ignorance
Sort
is
of
bliss.
aggressively reading that magazine.
Sometimes I'm not paying attention where I should be, I'm watching it, when you edit, you're like, oh, geez, I didn't notice that. It's probably a good thing. But, again, we had our cameras that day because we were like, let's just go out. And we drove past the house. And we're like, look at that couple sitting on the porch. And I found that every time I follow my gut, and I always fight it, I just don't want to. I'm like, just keep driving, and it tends to pan out. So we turned around and we parked pretty far from the house and then walked a decent distance to their front porch. They could take us in a little bit. I'm not thinking this in the time, but I think that it sort of naturally did that. And then I can't recall exactly what I said, but I think I probably introduced myself and Pierre and sort of explained that we were driving around, and probably just said something like, do you mind if we sit and talk and explain what I'm doing a little bit more? And then you saw the rest. I mean, there was more to it than that, because then there was a point where it was like, you know what, do you mind if we bring out the camera right now, just for now, and film a little bit of this? And then he was like, okay. And then so Pierre ran off and got the camera, and I continued talking to him and his wife. And then what I don't understand is why he let me film that. I still don't understand why he was like, sure. And some people have told me, well, they're just being polite and they're Southerners, which is possibly very true. Maybe it wasn't anything I did. It was just like, don't know how to say no, and I totally took advantage of that. I don't know. But then Pierre came back, and Pierre is a very special type of filmmaker. He knows not to get in anyone's faces. He probably walked up quite unobtrusively, as you can with a big camera, and then you spend a little time and people just kind of get used to it, and then you sort of saw an edited down version of what happened next. I think I was like, you're fine with this, and I had to be like, why? Because I was confused. You're fine with this? He's like, yeah. And then I said, well, just the poetry is weird. That's what I was trying to get at. And he was like, well, all right. And I was like, okay, well, then we're on, So people are surprising, and people just say yes. I have to say, it's really rare that people said no. So I don't know why that surprises me every day. I've learned this throughout my whole career, that people say yes, but it still surprises me because I would say no.
But
So.
there was a moment as a journalist in which he said, well, let me take a look. I said, got it. got him, you know, because once you have that curiosity, you know, and there's a lot of curiosity, and this changes the routine of the whole day. I mean, there's these people who came and with a camera and wanted to talk about poetry.
I think people do, ultimately, I think we all want to be known in some way. I think that might be why I'm doing this project. What are you? As we get asked a lot. Be like, where are you from? Why do you look the way you, what are you is the question I got. And so I've also oftentimes felt very alone, as distinguished from lonely, just alone, not understood. And so I think maybe, and you'd have to ask them, they might say you're bullshitting, you don't know what you're talking about, this is why I did it. But I think that ultimately, if there's some sense even articulated to themselves or not, if you feel like someone's trying to get to know you, there's something nice about that. And again, I can't tell you that that's what they're feeling, but I think that that's one reason why I'm doing this project, is to sort of, you know, you do work because you're fed by something, and so you're like, I want to be known, I want to be understood, and so you end up trying to make other people understood by other people.
But Jennifer, you also have your body language is respectful, and it's not aggressive. You're not, you know, which we see a lot of bad journalists or journalists who need to do that because that's their job and they're doing something different. They're not doing documentary. So you come in waiting for them to decide if you're a friend or foe. But you're very self-assured, but they're not imposing. I think we'll go back to you, but I think this gentleman over there wanted a question. Maybe you can finish it.
Yeah, I had a couple questions. One simple one is, what the judge seen in the courtroom, what verse?
37.
37. And I wondered, did they memorize that, or they were all reading it from some kind of teleprompter?
Yes. Yeah, two people had the ability to memorize, and that was their thing, and they wanted to, and it was like, great, it's going to be great. But everyone else, because when we decided to do this project, it was like, yeah, let's do it. And then I was like, how am I going to have them? No, I hated memorizing poems when I was younger. So I was like, what are we going to do? So we have a piece of glass that reflects the poem on, and we can shoot through that.
Oh.
Yeah.
And one more thing. When I saw I have to tell you, I was at a Def Jam poetry thing, but I snuck out a couple times to see Whitman, Alabama, and each time I left in tears. It was very beautiful, and I was...
Can I interrupt you for a second? Just
yeah.
all of you in the audience, I don't know, I'm getting a lot of emails from men that are saying that they're crying, more so than women. I just wanted to say that. I find that interesting. Not to pick you out of the crowd, but I just did, sorry.
But then at the end, I was kind of looking forward to Whitman's barbaric yawp, the very last verse. I sound my barbaric yawp over the rooftops of the world.
Right.
But you
Not there yet.
There's 52.
In the museum, there's 25 verses, and online at whitmanalabama.com, there's those 25 or 26 verses, but we're still working on it. It's a huge project. It's 52. Yeah, it's 52 verses, and to sort of hit home this idea of how we're all connected, and we've connected the North and the South and the past and the present. We're also thinking of filming the last 12 verses that we haven't yet in different other parts of America, actually.
Wow,
Since Whitman,
great.
Alabama is a fictitious place. Yeah.
Great.
So.
I think this lady here had a question. Thank you for asking those questions.
Thank you for Whitman, Alabama. I think it's genius. And I'm hoarse from telling people to get here and see this. I think it's just amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's interesting to me that you say everyone wants to be known, and just prior to that, you said you would say no.
Right.
But close to the end, when you go into the house that has the rifle, and the man tells you that he will analyze your handwriting, you say yes.
Yeah, there's a verse, for those of you who haven't seen it, it's verse 50, where I get introduced to a man, and he just starts whipping me around his house and showing me all his stuff, and we were like, oh God, okay, so we just went with it. And then I asked him what he did, and he said he used to analyze handwriting. And so I said, if I got you you could analyze my hand, and he said, yep. And he walked off, got a piece of paper, came back, and I was like, okay. I mean, I think that was a point where I was like, if I'm asking people to be vulnerable, I need to be vulnerable, which, you know, I'm the all-powerful editor, so I could edit it out too. But when we were editing that, it was like, no, it has to go in. We had an exchange there. You know, he just met us on camera, said yes, and he did something that showed off a skill he had and an ability. And Whitman, interestingly enough, I only found out like a couple weeks ago, which is really fun learning about the weird what's the word that I use? Surreptitious things, not surreptitious, wrong word. Thank you. Serendipitous things that happen and the meaning that sort of evolves. I found out he was really into phrenology. So he was really into sort of like reading people's character through the measurements of their skulls. And so here's this person, you know, trying to tell me a little bit about myself through reading my handwriting. I was like, oh, that's so cool. And I only found that out like a couple weeks ago. But I thought, also just going with the moment. Even if we didn't put that on camera and it didn't end up making the cut for a good reason, here's a person in the moment. This is what he's offering me, and this is what he's offering of himself. And again, if he ended up being like, please don't ever use this video, it doesn't matter. In the moment, something real is happening. So.
Could you just tell us how many I don't know who these people, what their titles are, but who did you travel with in order to do what you did?
Thank you for asking that question. It's actually a really important part of this, and part of I think the co-authorship of this whole work is these voices in the crew and Whitman. In terms of structure, it was only ever, except for on very rare occasions, one other person with me, and that's just to make it as intimate as possible, considering there's going to be 2 cameras involved. So there's usually only one other person, and that would either be typically Bob Miller and Pierre Qatar. And what those 2 people have in common is that they're both fantastic photographers. But I think that there are a lot of fantastic photographers that I don't think would make a good mix for this, because they really put the people first. And so those 2 just do amazing work. And also, in terms of the aesthetics of this, a lot of people have said it's a very beautiful thing, and we obviously want it to look good, but that's not, I'm a very visual person, but not in an aesthetic sort of way. It's in like how people behave and in their muscle movements and the way their faces sort of might have a slight tick, though obviously I didn't notice the woman on the porch, her frustration with me. But having people that can sort of notice these small things and be really attuned to the people that they're filming, I think Bob and Pierre are really good at. And so there'll be a lot of technical mistakes that we'll keep in an edit, because we feel like what they've captured might have been all of a sudden, for Anthony, who started singing, Pierre was on his way picking up probably a 20-pound camera, getting down from a crouch position, and I didn't know that was going to happen, and I said, prove that you can sing. And Pierre had taken the thing off of the tripod and was just sort of crouched in this position and just like, holy shit, like I've got to because he's not concerned about, stop, let me get the tripod right. Let me stick it in place. Let me make sure that this looks good. Let's frame it up beautifully. He didn't step on that moment, you know. So the team is super important in terms of being people that really, they obviously know how to shoot very well. But that's not the visual thing that I'm looking for when I'm shooting too. It's like, how are we making people feel comfortable with the cameras? Not always possible. And also, how are we absorbing into the cameras as much of who they are as possible, not necessarily how beautifully lit they are. So.
I have one question. You want to tell us about the music?
Oh God.
La musique.
This is my little. I'm so thankful for this music, but let me just tell you, the first idea for this is everyone in Alabama has a guitar in their closet if they're not playing it on their front porch. They're connected to music down there in a way that I haven't found in other places. And so I thought, I'm just gonna also have this be a portrait of musicians here in Alabama, and we're gonna get original music for each one of these. And we started on that path, and it became too impossible, too unwieldy, because we allowed ourselves to do other things, like spend more time with these people. So that's for a future. I hope we can do a complete re-edit of all, not a re-edit, but like change the music out one day. But for right now, I'm so thankful that there's actually just music that you can get online right now. But it's a sore spot for me, because on occasion I'll hear it in other places, and I'll be like, oh.
Right. The rights. And
But
all
we do our best to sort of like try to find music that really fits it, and it's really helped our workflow. But it's my one little sore spot with. But I'm thankful for that music.
I didn't ask that. I did not ask that.
Yeah. No, it's okay. It's part of the story.
Somebody's waiting for a while, and then we'll go back to you.
Just a quick question. Did you have to get each of these people to agree to what you shot?
No. I mean, other than their explicit, and other than they're on camera saying,
So
they're doing it.
Once they agreed, that's it. It's
They
your
didn't have to,
property.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Cool.
I think there, and then you, right? Was it someone? Yeah, but you asked the question already? No.
No, I had a
Go ahead,
question.
please.
I was just wondering how many hours of film each verse, or did it vary wildly for each?
It varied wildly, and there's a verse that we haven't filmed yet, and hopefully we'll find an interesting way to do it, but it's probably, like, the longest verse we have here, verse 12, verse 43, which you guys saw, was probably 2 pages, 3 pages long, but there's a verse that's only like 6 or 7 or 8 lines that actually is one of the longest. Like, it's really strange. In order to get the story out, it might not correspond to the length of the thing. So I can't even tell you that the amount of footage we have for one might be a few hours, and the other might be like many. But it's just all over the place.
Did
Yeah.
any take more than one day? Did you have to ever go back?
I think don't hold me to this, because I'm just trying to go through the whole number, but I think that all of them were done that day. There might be an exception, but I can't think of it right now. Maybe the cemetery one, I went back to get a shot of some grass or something like that, but I can't remember now. But generally it was like, it's happening now, it's in the moment. So the idea of breaking up that continuity of all the reads were always done. I don't think I never went back and got a second half of a read later, because then it would just feel like not the same energy probably. But no, I think they were always done in a day, or half a day, or a couple hours.
If you've done any kind of production, you know the amount of work that goes into taking all that material and then select it, log it, decide what to say and what not to say. I'm not excusing, I'm just saying that there's a humongous amount of work to make it work, to make it say, it's not just the poem. I think you had a question. Who had a question? Oh, you had, sorry.
Thank you. I know this was sponsored by a media company in Alabama. Are they using it in a public way?
Yeah, in fact, the woman who commissioned it's here, Michelle Holmes, and it's Alabama Media Group it runs all the largest news outlets in the state, from like the Mobile Press Register. I know you guys have probably heard of the Birmingham News and the Huntsville Times, so that's their umbrella group. And they put it on when we had these first 25 up, every Friday there would be a new verse. And so people got used to the fact that, hey, like next Friday there's going to be this other, who knows what city it's going to be in, or town, or where. But and then they built a small microsite for it, which is if you go to whitmanalabama.com, they built that too, so that it could be easily found in one place. Yeah.
So there's a lot of response within the state, and people are seeing it everywhere.
Yeah, though it's funny, I've gotten emails from people saying, I'm in like Mobile, and how come I found out about it through my connections in Philly?
Right.
And it's interesting.
Yeah, and one other just follow-up part of this is, how do you think it's different? You did it as a web project originally?
I mean, it was the first and foremost home for it was meant to be online, because it was for the newsroom. So, but from the outset we said, hey, let's do this for the newsroom, but if it's strong enough, you could recut it to be a documentary, or it could be in a physical space like here at Philly. But its first priority was to be for that audience.
So I was just wondering how different it is. You think the experience for people, you've got different responses from people who find it on web versus seeing it in an exhibition space like this.
Yeah, so I had that conversation recently. I love what's going on here because I don't think, people are like, why don't you submit it to film festivals? And I'm like, I think that it could work, and I've shown it in, like an hour frame here, but I love the idea of creating, it needs to be an intimate space. I was telling someone the other day about Philly, intimate, but you can come and go as you please, kind of like you might with the poem. You might kind of be like, this isn't for me, and leave, or you might be like, I'm interested and I'm going to come back. And I've seen people do that here, and it works really well. But I was explaining this to someone, and they were like, I really love it at home because I get to be alone with it, and I get to just watch it when I want to, and I like the intimacy of just me and my laptop, me watching on my laptop. So I think as long as conceptually there's a space for it where it's not only going to show up, just in a really loud space, even if it's if it's 500 feet wide on a screen, I don't care about that. No one can really pay attention. But as long as the space creates an intimacy, and ideally, the ability for the audience to sort of like control it to some extent. Here, you can hit stop at home, or here you can just walk out. I think it's a good way of being able to engage with the material. It's like a book in that way.
What happens in the exhibition space is that there's a weird thing is that you say, oh, is this all there is? And then you start, no, seriously, I mean, it's a little kind of, is this all there is? And then you start seeing the film, and the whole room expands into a whole city or house or state. It is a strange phenomenon because then you start looking at the photographs and at the films in a totally different way. I don't know if you had that experience but I recommend that you see it, and you sit there and the book is there and you check, and then all of a sudden it invades you. It becomes part of your mindset, Is somebody
thank Amanda and the museum for that.
Can you put up with any more questions?
I'm happy to, yeah.
Okay, yes, go ahead. Somebody who has
also feel free to sneak out, whoever wants to sneak out.
I was just wondering about, did you have entree, any that was set up in advance? Did you encounter, if not, did you encounter any barriers along the way? There was that one scene where it sounded like the guy who owned the drive-in area was.
Oh, when I was on the cell phone? Yeah.
Yeah, but I was just wondering if you ever encountered any kind of barriers along the way to just going ahead and stopping and setting things up and talking to people.
Yeah, I suppose there were a couple I can think of. One was in the northeast corner of Alabama, there's a lesbian separatist group, which I did not film, but they're up there. And there was just an immediate barrier there. They're a separatist group that obviously started sometime in the 70s and wound up in Alabama. But there was an immediate barrier there because they don't advertise for safety reasons, like where they're located and where they're located, and I just had to hunt them down. So there were like some logistical barriers to that. And then there were some interesting, even with that group, I spent the night with them. I used their compostable toilet. I played games with them, and then half of them said that they were going to do it and they were going to read, and it was great. And then we came back to film. The other half showed up and had issue that I chose a male poet, and I said, the verse that I'm asking you to read is all about the female gaze. It's the one on the beach, with all the men. And then half the lesbians were like, yeah, that's great. And the other half were like, nah, and it all became a consensus thing. And I was like, you guys figure it out. I was just kind of like, I don't really, it'd be interesting, but there were so many sort of consensus-based issues that night. And I had spent so much time with them over the course of months in terms of corresponding. And then there were many other funny things that I'll write about one night, about that night, that it just wasn't that important to me to push it, and I could have gotten it. I'm pretty sure I could have gotten it, because one of the women wrote me later and said, you should try again, because I think we can make this happen. But I also, for me at that point, I didn't want to cause potential issues for them down the road within. There's so many other people to talk to. And conversely, there was a guy that I met watching the sun go down one night, and he was lecturing me about assumptions people have about, I like my guns, and I have no problem with gay people, but I like my guns and the Second Amendment. And he was just a sort of a stereotype of many things. But he had issues with homosexuality too. And I said, he was like, well, what are you doing? And I told him. He was like, well, I'll read for you. And he's someone I said, many people think Whitman was gay. And he was like, that's fine, I'll do it. So you had the lesbians that were like giving me a hard time, And I'm like, I'm a lesbian, can't we just work this out between lesbians? And then there was this guy who takes issue, has issues, I told him I was more upfront with him than anyone else in many ways, and he was like, I'll do it. So it's funny, there are perceived barriers. You'd think I'd have entree with the lesbians. I didn't. A little. And then, you'd think I wouldn't with him, and he was ready to read for me. The sun ended up going down, and we ended up having to move on, and I really wanted to, but I ended up not being able to with him because we were in the middle of a shoot with someone else. He was just someone I was taking a break, and he asked about it. So the perceived barriers are the big problem, I think. I don't know if that answers your question exactly.
No, I think the fact that you can just go along the road and shoot this is exactly, in a way, what you're describing about the democracy, in a way, because that was the sense that I got, that you could take this in and you could describe it for others to see without being stopped.
I think that's the other thing too. Throughout my whole life, I've just found that people are generous in that way. So it's kind of like, I just want to show people. People don't believe me oftentimes. I'm just like, let me just show you,
Watch also for just a little note, when there's a scene in which a farmer's family, they're both working, and she's holding a baby, and he's, you say, shoeing a horse?
Yeah.
And she's very practical. The horse is like, oh, give me a break. But he's doing it with the knowledge of someone who knows how to do it. And then at the end, you left a very tender scene, which is the horse laid down on the ground and start rubbing against the sand or something. And it was just such a nice moment. Even the horse was happy that it's over, So I thought that was a real nice touch. That's why I say about, the tender moments.
We luck out all the time. I mean, the farrier, Brandon, was like, oh, look what he did for you. And we were like, oh, all right, is that unusual? I'm not a horse person, so I don't know. We're like, oh, look what he's doing, but it was neat.
Yeah, that was sweet. That's sweet that you kept it there. One more question. Yes. No, yeah, sorry.
Just first, thank you. This is like such a beautiful and just, I don't speak personally, but like important piece of art. My question is about, there's a lot of young people that are reading, and for me, as I'm watching, I try to read, have the book with me, because there's a lot of words that I might not know, and the language can be it's poetry, it's beautiful, but somewhat difficult to understand. And I'm just curious, when they were reading and you were talking with, I'm thinking about the young people in particular, but I guess anyone, how much mutual learning and teaching was happening about the poetry itself while it was going on?
None. I mean, none actively. I very much stayed away from, this is what I think is happening in the poem. I had my very broad, this is a poem about America, about Americans, about our just richness and largeness of who we all are. But I very much tried to stay away from trying to give interpretations of what I thought was going on. Maybe if I was directly asked, but I was rarely directly asked. So I just sort of went with that and sort of made peace with that, or felt that was important too. I didn't want to bring too much of my ideas of things of each of these verses, and I don't know, they're just my ideas. I don't know what value they have, you know. And I'm sure there are plenty of people that just read this and they left and was like, what the hell did I just read? You know, this wasn't. I love that it's there and I think it's meaningful, but it's also at times just a vehicle. You know, a meaningful one, hopefully, if you go back to it. I mean, some people watch this and they're like, I don't pay attention to the poetry at all. That's not what it's about for me. And some people, it's totally about the poetry first. And some people watch it more and they get more out of it or they don't. So you can come at it in lots of different ways. Yeah. Thank you for coming. Yeah.
Thank you so much to our guests, Jennifer Crandall and Elisabeth Perez-Luna. Thanks to Amanda Bach, who curated the exhibition across the street. I hope you get to see it. We have coffee and cookies in the Perlman Cafe, so the conversation needn't stop here. Please join us and we can sit together. Thank you.
Don't forget